Diane used to come and help me tend Maynard, Feloy, and sometimes Kirk and Marie would come over. I can still remember some of the concoctions that must have tasted awful that we would give them when we were playing doctor. They always got to be the patients. So, we knew better, but those concoctions probably tasted awful. One time, we were jumping on the beds. We would jump from Mom and Dad's bed to Maynard's, and I think Diane and I broke Mom and Dad's bed. I had some kind of not-so-stable gadgets holding it up. We tied it back together with Dad's socks, they were black, and remade the bed. I'll never forget how scared I was to face the music when Mom and Dad went to climb into it. It fell down with a bang. Woo! I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was terrible. Can you imagine my dad hollering, "What the blankety blank is going on here?" We walked everywhere we went. The movie house was about 7 blocks away. There was an old lyric theater. My dad's uncle and wife, Kate and Lauren Nilsson, helped run it for years. Once in a while, they would have drawings for the Saturday matinee. I will never forget the time that Charles Lee, a boy that lived through the block in the White House by the power plant, won a new bike. He was the envy of all us neighborhood kids. Elementary school was about 8 blocks away, and the junior high and high school were up at the other end of town. We all were quite healthy, partly because we walked everywhere we could. Our second cousins, David and Ronald Nilsson, lived through the block from us. David was around Diana's age, so he was kind of a big chief too. One day when he got mad at us, he shot Diana in the foot with a bow and arrow. It was the Achilles heel he shot. Never forget Diana screaming. That really hurt. A lot of times we would wade in knee-deep snow to school. One time I was alone. Maria and Diana must have been ill or off with their dad. Both David and Ronald picked me up, threw me over the fence of Madge Christensen's. She was a sweet lady. She picked me up and helped me clean up and got me home. Dad was really mad at them. The neighborhood kids and I made up most of our own fun. I especially remember the many hours I spent with Diane and Marie making matchstick dolls, finding pieces of tinfoil, flower petals, especially Grandmother Barney's hollyhocks, made neat dresses for our dolls. We made houses and towns and lived in dream worlds of splendor. I babysat from the time I was 10 years old for spending money. I also cleaned houses. Diane and I often went together to babysit. When I was younger, maybe 8, 9, and she was a little older. We were asked to babysit at a house, I remember it was white, down the street from us. Several different families lived in it through the years. It was probably a rental. The people we babysat for told us their baby was asleep and that we weren't to go into its room. We were to just stay out and listen for it. It cried a lot. It scared us. We were afraid, but it was going to get sicker or choke from crying. Finally, we slowly snuck into the baby's room, flipped on the light. It still brings tears to my eyes what we seen. This wee little baby's head had water on the brain. It was so large with that tiny little body, crying and crying. We had never seen anything like that. They should have warned us. They should have showed us. We did the best we could with it. Don't remember if it was a boy or a girl. Fed it a bottle, but we didn't pick it up. Changed its diaper. And in the meantime, we found a black widow in its crib. We killed the black widow, tidied up the room as best we could. That, though, was one of the worst things that I ever witnessed. It still sticks with me. Also, in that White House, a couple moved in. Kent and Joanne Roberts. He was a famous jockey. He did big races all across the United States. I liked him, but he was killed during a race. He choked to death while eating grapes, trying to keep his mouth moist. A lot of the jockeys did that, and they also sucked on rocks. He was a good guy as far as I could tell. Joanne was the poorest housekeeper I probably ever ran across, but I loved her dearly, and she loved to have me tend. I always, well, not always, because other times I'd clean her kitchen. I think she left every last dish she could find for me to do before she hired me to tend. She kept her living room pretty clean, probably for company, but I liked her too. And one time she gave me a swimming suit. Man, she must have been little, but was made like a leopard skin. Oh, I thought I was cool in that swimming suit. And she gave me a lot of clothes, which came in handy. The little boy, he was a rough and tough kid, but he grew up with a rough and tough dad, so. But I felt so sorry for Joanne's sister. She had what they called a fake pregnancy. She thought she was pregnant, and her body thought it was too, and she went full term, looking like she was pregnant. But there was no baby. They had this white pony. It was like a small horse. It had brown on its feet. Beautiful horse. And they let me ride it around the block. I was afraid of horses, but I guess I got on that. They taught me into it. And Diane and I would ride it around the block. One day it stepped on my foot. Do you think that dumb thing would get off my foot? I think that happens to most kids. Anyway, it took me a while to get it off my foot, take it back to its owners, and never ride it again. I love to draw and sing. I drew many of my pictures while I was babysitting, sometimes way into the night while the people's children slept on.